Okay, so here we start. Good afternoon and welcome to our peer-to-peer on-air project. Today we will present you the results or the outcomes of what have been done during these 4 weeks. And also we will discuss those artistic results later on. My name is Sergej Tchirkov and I'm Assistant Artistic Director of the Studio for New Music Ensemble. Before we start, I'm going to say a few words about the project, and I'm going also to sum up a bit what have been done so far. The project peer-to-peer was conceived as to challenge the problematic notion of divided creativity, as we know it, as we've seen it in the history of music. So when there is a composer, there is a performer, and composer does his job, then comes the performer, rehearses it, and presents more or less ideal version. So here we wanted to critically assess and also address the ensemble's rich experience in collaborating with many different actors from all over the world. In summer 2020, we have applied for an open call. There was a program launched by Helvetia Moscow that was aimed at supporting new formats of cultural exchange in those difficult times. And it's my pleasure to thank Helvetia Moscow for supporting this project. I remind that Helvetia, this is a Swiss arts council, a public organization which promotes a Swiss culture abroad. It is important to note that although it has been supported by Helvetia, there was no conditions that the project should have been done with Swiss musicians. So it was just for other purposes that we invited our guest peers, and I will present them a bit later. Our objective was to explore the challenges posed by pandemic and to see if we could use those limitations somehow in artistic way and to develop some new effective tools for collaboration that can emerge out of those current restrictions. So we were trying to think big, actually, and therefore today's presentation and the discussions cannot be considered as a full stop of the process, but rather this is an attempt to assess the format, the material, working methods, turning points, problem-solving methods, etc., etc. So, but most importantly, this is an attempt to assess the potential of such a format, of such a form of collective creation. That's why the project is entitled P2P On AIR, but there also a subtitle, Collective Composition Online Project. So before I present the musicians and the team, I want to express my profound gratitude to two wonderful artists, composers, artistic directors, curators, who accepted my invitation and were responsible to guide us throughout the process. And they agreed to be our guest peers. So this is Annette Schmucki and Serge Vuille. Both composers are based in Switzerland. Both composers are much more than just composers. They are, first of all, musicians, wonderful musicians, who have been very active in very different genres and very different fields of artistic creation. Annette and Serge have been working separately with musicians, so each of them had 3 working sessions. All of them can be found on our website, which is www.studionewmusic.ru, and then you press EN for English, and then you find the project. It's quite easy. Then there's a link to all the streaming that we recorded and that can be found also on YouTube. Today, this is the first time that we are all here together, that we have both Annette and Serge with us. Also, I want to present the team who has been behind the project and who has never been seen on our streams. This is Evgenia Izotova, the director of the Studio for New Music Ensemble, Olga Ardeleanu, head of the Center for Contemporary Music, Alexandra Lokteva and Anna Iglitska as staff members of the Center for Contemporary Music. When I refer to Studio for New Music or Center for Contemporary Music, or I will just right now refer to the Center for Electroacoustic Music, it's almost needless to say that this all is part of Moscow Tchaikovsky Conservatory. That's where we are right now. And we have been able to use space, rooms, and facilities provided by the Center for Electroacoustic Music of Moscow Conservatory. And I thank Nikolay Popov for all the technical coordination and support. I thank Alexandra Pitai, who has been responsible for the video and for the live streaming. And I thank Anton Bushinsky, who's the sound engineer. So now, here are the musicians. And today, I think I would start in a different way. Let's say from left to right. Valentin Puzankov, bassoon. Nikita Agafonov, clarinet. Anna Borisova, oboe. Masha Baranova, flute. Varvara Kosova, violin, and Sasha Kobrina, cello. So now a very brief report on what had been done so far. So each of our, as I said, each of our guest peers had 3 sessions with the musicians, and today we will present 2 different compositions that have been developed from totally different materials. And we start with Annette Schmucki. And Annette, on this point, it would be nice if you could join me, because I will just give a summary of what we've done. And if I say something which is completely wrong, or if I miss the point, you just interrupt me and say, no, Sergej, that's too much. So just very brief. Before we started the project, and Annette was the first one to have a session with musicians, before the first session, Annette asked musicians to record a word, a few words, a phrase, and those words were later on used as a main material. So the whole thing is centered and based on some occasional phrases that have been recorded by the musicians on their smartphones and sent to Annette. At the first session, Annette and Studio for New Music experimented with different possibilities of reading the text, reading the text in the musical means, or sometimes in just normal human speech means. And there were also first attempts to compose the words together with the sounds. The second session featured the discussion about some basic notions like expression, like what does it mean being nice, sound, why do we say sometimes that sounds nice? What does it mean actually nice? And more importantly, why it is nice? Why does it sound nice to me or to someone else? There was also a homework for the musicians. They were supposed to formulate how can a text be transcribed into sonic events. Further possibilities were explored of working with words. So that's what we did during the second session. And the third session was about making choices of what actually can be left out and what would remain as a composition. So I intentionally hesitate to call this composition, because this is a kind of a very specific process. But since we are supposed to operate within given terms, let's put it like a composition or work or whatever. During the third session, the musicians worked out 3 different versions. And you will hear now how different they are. And 2 of those versions were made by musicians. They were kind of authors. They were musicians who took responsibility, but both those versions were made out of general ideas that were floating around, or some remarks that were made during the sessions, and also sometimes during our conversation on WhatsApp or else. And we then have one text score and one notated score. And also we have one version that was proposed by Annette herself. So just maybe Annette would like to say a few things before we begin, but just before I forget, this is the order of the versions that we will do now, because first I suggest that after Annette's words, we will play it through all three versions, and the order will be, it doesn't matter actually, the order, what the order would be. I think it's not important for the audience at the moment. We can discuss it later. But now, Annette, if you want to say something, so you're very welcome.
So thank you very much to be invited here, and thank you very much for this collaboration. That is really great. And I would like to continue. So, but now it's a stop, and we will hear the three pieces. And I think we talk after about things. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then it's good. Then we just do a few things, and then probably we are all ready to start. And just for me, the order is. For Annette piece, for one of those versions, I will conduct, basically for two of those versions. Если все готовы, да? Темп у нас какой? Раз, два. Не знаю, мне видно на экране? Вот так видно. Значит, я буду показывать на повторениях, я буду показывать, да? Один пустой. Thank you. So I think we will just move straight away to the second version. I remind that the material is always the same. So the source of inspiration is the same, although the versions will be extremely different.
We should choose the language.
Yes.
Немецкий? Нет, там есть места, где мы говорим все вместе. Вот как
Где вы говорите по одному?
Можно же использовать?
Да.
Да, пожалуйста. Где вы говорите по одному?
По одному, первый, второй.
Только, да, первый, второй.
Только, ну там еще есть места.
Просто
но...
поярче.
У меня
пятый.
Давайте первый и второй. Так, Саша, на пятый тебе будет вот это. Возьмешь его, ладно? Я его включу. Он включен.
Хорошо?
Нет, не на
шестой.
пятый, ей нужно на шестой, и седьмой нужен Вале.
Значит, да, это тоже включен. Кто первый, второй у кого?
У меня второе, но
Первый,
мы с Варей.
У меня первое, у нас вместе второе.
Хорошо, может быть,
Как
тогда...
нам это сделать? Тогда тебе
Вы
вот
сможете
это,
передать?
а потом...
Да.
Как
Нет,
лучше?
сейчас Саше, а потом я отдам тогда Маше.
И вообще
Да,
всех,
да.
всех я попрошу погромче, да? Все погромче, немножко преувеличивая.
Играть или читать?
Читать, естественно.
Только мне.
Когда его Саше передать? Его передать потом Саше?
Да,
Маша.
потом.
Маша.
Я передам.
Окей.
Ну, да.
Мгм.
Значит,
Als, auf, bis, dachte, dachte, das, die, dürfen, erworben, euch, Gesundheit, habe, ich, kam, Mensch, muss, nicht, passieren, sehr, sie, Tiger, unbeschränkt und vergaß, weiß, werden, wir, Wünsche zu sein.
Abend, als, auf, braucht, dachte, der,
das,
dies,
dürfen, erworben,
finden,
Gesundheit,
haben, ich, Inspiration, kam, Mensch, nach,
muss,
nicht,
passieren,
richtig,
sehr,
selten,
sie,
so,
Tiger, unbeschränkt
und
vergaß, weiß,
werden,
wir, Wünsche
Zeitpunkt,
zu sein.
zufrieden,
Aber. An. Bald. Brinnen. Dachte. Daran. Der. Dies. Ein. Es. Freude. Gut. Hat. Ich. Ist. Keine. Mich. Nicht. Ruin. Sich.
straffen, tun, und, von, weniger, wie, woher, zu, zurückblicken, aber, an, bald, bringen, dachte, daran, der, dies, ein, es, Freude, gut, hat, ich, ist, keine, mich, nicht, ruhen, sich, strafen, tun, und, von, weniger, wie, woher, zu, zurückblicken, aber, an, bald, brennen, dachte, daran, der, dies, ein, es, Freude, gut, hat, ich, ist, keine,
Mensch, Naus, nichts, Versagtig, sehr,
strafen, tun, und, von, weniger, wie, woher, zu, zurückblicken.
Alien. Andert. Bisse von. Dachte. Das. Der. Dieser. Echt? Gehst du hin? Gut. Ich. Sehen. Danke. Mit. Nichts. Nicht. Schoenen. Siehe. Так. Oberschlagen. Und. Wächte. Wenn. Wir. Worte. So Haus.
Aber, an, bald, brennen, dachte, daran, Der. Dies. Ein. Es. Freude. Gut. Hat. Ich. Ist. Keine. Mich. Nicht. Ruin. Sich. Strafen. Tun. Und. Von. Weniger. Wie. Woher. Zu. Zurückblicken.
Als. Auf. Bis. Dachte. Dachte. Das. Die. Dürfen. Erworben. Euch. Gesundheit. Habe. Ich. Kam. Mensch. Muss. Nicht. Passieren. Sehr. Sie. Tiger. Unbeschränkt. Und. Vergaß. Weiß. Werden. Wir. Wünsche. Zu sein.
Ahnung. Andererseits begründen, dachte, darüber, der, diese, ein, etwas, frohe, guten, ich, ja, lange, mit, Nacht, nichts, sagt, sich, Straße, tut, und, was, weniger, Wind, Wohlbefinden, zu fühlen, zyklisch, Ahnung, andererseits begründen, dachte, darüber, der, diese, etwas, frohe, gute, ich, ja, lange, nachts, nichts, sagt, sie, Straße, tut, und, was? Wind. Wohlbefinden. Zu fühlen. Zyklisch.
Thank you. And here we have another version, which is much shorter, and which also will be conducted. Саша, напомни, пожалуйста, мне тембр. Да, пустой. Я буду дирижировать генеральную паузу, да? Постарайтесь.
Когда?
Thank you. Okay, that's good, Annette, Serge. That's good that you are still with us.
Yes, it's a good sign.
So then, basically, everyone is free to say what she or he feels about the whole thing. And I suggest that maybe Annette would start and may want to talk about the perspective of those very, very different versions. Also, maybe as possible material, potential material for a possible Weiterkomposition, as a further composition. And of course, the musicians, you're very welcome to join Annette at this point. Serge, you also might want to share your fresh, to make fresh comments. So, and yeah, just that.
Yes. Thank you so much for your interpretations and your compositions. The material is always the same in every piece. This is a list of words, and also the compositions are like lists. So the rhythms are in this like Binnenrhythmus, the very small rhythms, but the whole piece is based on a list, and it's just a pulse, a tempo like this. So, but this, I think it's just the only thing that is the same in the three pieces. I like very much that the pieces are so different, and the last is very lyric, I think, and based on other thinking of translate language in music. So this is my passion, to translate language in music, or to look at language as music. So it was very beautiful to hear these three different versions. I also like the second, that is very, how could we say, epic. It's really large. It needs time. It's like last time I said, it's like melting ice. It's not really. It's not just melted. It's something not liquid really, but between really heavy stuff and liquid, something like that, very slow. So
Yeah, Annette, you can just go on. I will do this. I will give short remarks at the same time.
So we worked a lot about this. We have words and we have to translate them in music, and how could we do that? Not just to improvise, but to make some choices, to discuss this in the ensemble, and to see what's the best for the moment. So this is what I can say for the moment. The last time we played, it was until now, it made a real heavy step forward, I think. I don't know if you have played a lot or not, but it's really, it's so, in German we say, es bekommt Hand und Fuß. That will say, there are legs and hands and bodies in these pieces. It's very nice and interesting to hear that.
Yeah, I had this impression now when I listened to those versions today, that it is becoming a kind of organism that is supposed to live on its own and to develop according to its own laws. And that was interesting, because it was very different from what we tried last time, and we didn't change a lot of things since last time. So there was no impulses, no more suggestions from you, Annette. There were a few corrections. I mean, there were no corrections in part 3 in version 3. There were some updates to the second version. And I think now I think we can say who is responsible for what. So the first version was developed by Annette, but again, what we did today was somewhat different from what we tried last time. The second version was a collective thing that was developed by, well, that was written down as instructions. There is a text, there is no notes in it. There is a text-based instructions, and they were done by Varya. And the third version was developed by Sasha, and this is the only one which is quite strictly notated. There is a 4/4 meter, but still all the pitches and rhythms, they are not just taken out of inspiration. They are kind of they are all based on the certain laws that can be found within the words, or within the way we read the words. So that's one of the options that we discussed, I think, during our very first session. And if someone is interested, it's worth to have a look back on all the sessions, because everything that we did now, the traces are to be found in what we've done during this month. So that was interesting for me. I don't know if you would like to say something, because, I mean, you can say now, you can say later, but maybe now you have just played all 3 versions in a row, and maybe you would just, yeah.
I wanted to say that I'm very inspired just now, for now, and it's so interesting how it can be different from time to time. So we really, it sounds bad, but we really do nothing in these 3 days. From the last session. I mean that we have no rehearsal special or.
What a shame. Go back to practice.
Yes, and for me it was very interesting to hear it again, but so different. And I very like that Varya does with her version some differences, and I very like it, and that's great. And I want to listen it after this session.
Yes, we hopefully will get the recording.
Yes, and it's fantastic that all of it based on the same material. And I want to think about another ways to do it. I mean, I'm very like ужасная фраза. I liked your first words, Annette, about construction of the world in mouse. I mean, I want to изучить, study this thing and think to how we can use it. Ну, как бы,
You mean the way we pronounce the word,
как работает вообще аппарат языка внутри рта, когда мы
does
говорим вот такие штуки.
this connection between language, our physical apparatus, and the word, how does it work together? So you mentioned this once, and Sasha wants to investigate more into this.
And I'm sure that we have more ways, которые мы даже не изучили, хотя вот можно.
Which there's much more possibilities that we couldn't try, but they are and they are still open. So.
Я хотела бы благодарить Аннет
I wanted
за
to say
очень
thank
интересную
you,
идею
Annette, for the
и
very
прекрасную
interesting
работу.
idea and wonderful work.
Мне кажется, за 3 встречи мы пришли к каким-то и для себя выводам, и изучили подачу Аннет, как она расшифровывает слова.
I think that those 3 meetings were
И я поймала себя на мысли,
also for us to come to certain conclusions,
что любой язык теперь благодаря этим системам можно перевести в музыку.
And now I know that basically whichever
система, вот, которую нам Аннет предложила, и та, к которой мы пришли сами, вот благодаря разным.
System would it be, whatever method you would choose, you still can translate it into music.
Мне кажется, это универсальный вариант для любого языка теперь.
And this is, Anna says that it becomes a kind of universal material for every language, because every time there will be different laws of different language. Because just one remark, because maybe not everyone knows that the musicians not all of them know German, and obviously Annette doesn't know Russian. So we were, of course, discussing the possibility of meaning and the possibility of how do we understand, how do we perceive the words. But still, the musicians intentionally they were not forced to learn German. We never try how to pronounce the words in correct way. So, and you could hear this, but it was not so important here. So this is not an art of public speaking. This is something different that we did. And also, I think this is what you were talking about. Yeah.
Я хотела сказать, что это был очень интересный для нас опыт, для меня и для всех музыкантов, поскольку мы никогда не играли, в смысле не исполняли текст, которым привыкли на любом языке, если так читать.
Yeah, that's also for me that was an unusual and interesting experience because we never performed a text, literally perform a text.
Также очень здорово было работать как коллективный мозг, анализировать и переводить это читать по-разному, разными способами.
And of course, it was interesting to try to work as a collective. Господи, как мозг по-английски? As a collective brain. Thank you. Yeah, as a collective brain. That yeah.
И на протяжении всего проекта меня не покидала одна мысль, поскольку
And there
есть
was one thought that I've been thinking all over the project.
лично для меня, наверное, для многих тоже, когда читаешь какое-то произведение литературное, оно для нас как-то звучит.
Because when, for me personally, but maybe for someone else, when you're reading a poem or a novel, a kind of literature, then you imagine how would it sound.
Да, оно дает нам эмоции, но мы ощущаем какие-то эмоции
It gives us
прочтения.
certain emotions when we read it.
И мне интересно, что было бы, если бы мы сыграли, например, Евгения Онегина, Пушкина или Фауста Гёте.
And I'm interested, I'm just curious, what would happen if you would have taken really some famous masterpiece, which is known to everyone, like Pushkin, Evgeny Onegin, or Goethe, Faust, something like that. So what would happen if you would just play it with the same way? I mean, using different approach, but kind of getting taken distances from the fact that this is a masterpiece and everyone knows, or everyone thinks that he knows what it's all about.
Или, например, такое солнечное произведение, как, по-моему, «Вино из одуванчиков» Брэдбери. Ну ладно, это фантастика. Вот. Так. Мысль забыла.
Я бы хотела еще добавить, что работа над переходом слов в музыку требует определенных затрат. Мы должны быть всегда сконцентрированы, и музыканты, которые привыкли всегда играть то, что написано в нотах, оказались немножко по другую сторону.
That's a good point. There's also about the when you are working on translation from words, from text to sound. That requires another type of concentration. So your brain works differently. And as musicians who are used mostly to play what is written in the score, we were kind of taking the other side of the process.
Даже если у нас есть определенная свобода в нашей...
some kind of freedom in
Да,
what we do,
свобода в нашей трактовке, в подаче материала,
interpretation
мы
and
все
the
равно
way we
должны
approach the
отдавать
material,
себе отчет, почему мы именно так
still
сыграли,
must be aware why did we play this way and not another one.
и какую мысль мы хотели донести.
So this awareness of and responsibility of what we're doing and what kind of thoughts we wanted to share, this was something special. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone else to say? Someone else? Something else? I mean, we can also. Don't worry. We will still have time to discuss things after Serge part. But if there is something that anyone wanted to say right now, then he or her or she is very welcome. Serge, do you want to say something? I mean,
yeah,
I'm not in
maybe
this,
just
but
to say it's really nice to discover the work, and I think it's a really interesting process. I wanted also, of course, it's also has been part of my experience, but it's so nice to see the ensemble so committed and really like super open and really very generous with ideas and sound and really buying into the process. So I can really notice that. I mean, I noticed this myself, but I can also really hear it now through the work you did with Annette. So I think that's really wonderful. And my question to Annette would perhaps be, because that's something you kind of mentioned, Sergej, to know as a, you know, where you position yourself with the work as something that could become a composition. Do you feel like this was like a research process which lives in itself? How would you feel, how would you position yourself in terms of maybe making this into into a composition or performance work, or is it one?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Yeah. This is a question I asked me several times, not only here in this case, but when it is really a work, when is it an œuvre, you know, and I think every time you play something, it's music. So I'm very interested in open forms, in forms that you can decide in the moment to change something, and so I have no problems to say this was the work. So, and the other time it will be another work. I have lots of ideas how you could go in details, how you could this nuances, you can work on this, but I think it's these three pieces were so clear, everyone. I think I was happy to hear them. And the other question maybe that you ask me is, where is the composer? So I really love to work as a collective, and it's not important for me at all to say, okay, this is from Annette Schmucki and this is from Sasha and so on, but to feel that you are a team or as Masha said, a collective brain. So this was very cool to work with you guys, to work really together. Mm-hmm. Is that or?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
It's nice. I mean, I agree that the pieces that we heard, they are works in themselves, and I really like that. And and yeah, the question of where is the composer or not, I think that's also clear from this process that the idea is not necessarily to attribute that, but yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, then I have one suggestion, that before we start with the Serge part, I thought it would be nice, if you guys don't mind, if we would repeat the first version again, because I'm absolutely sure that it's going to be something different. It's not that long, but let's do this, and I will conduct again. Annette, is it okay with you? We will repeat your version again, because I'm absolutely sure it's going to be different again. And it's interesting to see, to see the difference within such short time. Yeah, and after all of them. Good.
Okay.
Сейчас я буду по-другому дирижировать.
На самом деле все для этого.
They said I will conduct differently. Good. Один пустой. Thank you. Thank you. Good. So shall we move on and see what have been developed out of Serge materials? So Serge Vuille chose a different approach and prepared some short video fragments that were looped and that were used as initial input for a potential composition. So the first session was an attempt to interpret these videos. So the musicians improvised mostly and tried to find first intuitive connections between what they see and what they play. That's what we do during the first session. At the second session, more video fragments arrived, and the musicians were asked to design a kind of own parts. Actually, they were asked, I think, during the very first rehearsal to do this, but at the second session that became more concrete. Those kind of parts which would only be understandable to them. So it could be also instructions on notes or whatever, how precise they are. This is up to the group. And the purpose was to begin to structure the improvisation. And by this third session, we had a library of sounds. This was created, and the participants, everyone, agreed upon what kind of material works best together with the videos. There were also, at some point, Serge sent us pitch fragments. There were chords that would resemble very much Richard Wagner's famous chords from his very famous opera, and they became part of the material. So probably you could find some allusions to those chords if we are lucky with the tuning. So you would find some allusions to those chords in what we are going to play now. So Serge, if you want to add something or to correct me, you're welcome.
Thank you. Nothing to correct. Maybe to say that also one of the things I was interested in at the beginning was the idea that we could merge towards some understanding of a video. So the video was played many times in a loop, and the group would play the same thing until it kind of stabilized somewhere, and that became the sound for this fragment. And then indeed we did a library of all these fragments, and I also made some suggestions to reorganize them in what we called studies. So that's nice. And so what we will present now are 3 studies made with these fragments. The first one is indeed completely free in terms of how the material was created, completely it's just that each fragment was merged together after a little bit of rehearsing and repeating the same pattern. The second one, we tried to say that it was all rhythmic, and indeed we took some harmonic material as a basis also. And then the third one is made of solo contributions, sometimes layered 2 people at a time. But that was a third approach. The question for me was really to look how the ensemble could generate material, and that was really that they could really appropriate. And I think it was also particularly interesting because with the video, the delay, the sound and everything, there was never really a feedback about saying, oh, I like this or I don't like this or something, because based on the sound, it was not even really relevant to talk about this. So there was really, I think, a lot of independence, and I thought that was actually quite nice about the distant process. But we didn't talk about the quality of sound, we really talked about the ideas, and then, yeah.
That's actually, sorry, this is an interesting point that you just touched upon, that we all together, I mean you and musicians, we kind of, we understood, okay, there are certain limitations, technical limitations that we had to live with, and they became part of the so-called composition, so they became part of all these studies. they were somehow integrated into the way the studies were rhythmically organized, or into the way the musicians react to the video, to what they see. That's interesting, and yeah, this is also something to think about.
So I think we can play these 3 studies. We're going to do number 1, number 3, and then number 2.
Okay.
And also to say that because of sometimes the little delay that can happen in streaming, etc., what we agreed during the work is that it's more important that the music stays together, even if it's not really in sync with the video. So sometimes there's going to be some things that don't line up exactly. I guess it's a real question for if it was a performance, but in this context, we just imagine that they are together.
Okay, so
the first one will be this. Oh, sorry. There we go. directly to the third study. This one is had some instructions about timekeeping and also some harmonic material. Very nice, and we go straight to study number 2, which is based on solo ideas.
Thank you. That was a nice cadenza, just just to the end.
Thank you.
Yeah. Serge, if you want to comment something, so please do. If everyone wants to make remark too, so you are welcome to do so.
Maybe just one thing which you didn't talk about before, but obviously the subject or the main red thread is about dams, water dams, and I like them. I'm quite fascinated by them at the moment. Of course, there's this really constant and really big element. They're often in the middle of really impressive nature, but there's also all the problems that they cause, also for wildlife, and the risk they cause also to human life. And when they're built, they're really huge footprint. So for me, there are really there's quite a lot of tension in there between really beautiful nature and beton and some clean energy, but also really destructive to the environment in other ways. So yeah, that's why I suggested we work with this with these images, and I really like how somehow the music that came out is also a little bit it's quite melancholic. It's also quite it's also double-sided. It's really beautiful. It's perhaps a little bit sad, and that's something that I really could identify with what came from that.
That's interesting what you've just said, because now when I was listening to the music, I thought how fragile it is, and so I've been thinking about precarity of performance, about the fragility of the performance, and obviously it comes also out of the video that we have of this fragility between power and nature and human interaction with all this, and that's an interesting point, because it's also extremely fragile and extremely, because there were also videos that pictured that filmed catastrophic events, crashes on the famous Russian dump, Sayano-Shushenskoye gas, and so many other things. But also there was something which starts extremely beautiful and peaceful, and and the fish swimming in the water plane and the water, and also then you see the beautiful mountains. First you see it from outside, and then you see there is a machine, there is a car which is digging into it, and that's interesting issue.
And also, I mean, as I said before, it was really wonderful to work with everyone, and I really feel like some of these loops or some of this material exist already since the first session, and they became really familiar. And in a way, it's really I really like hearing this back, and a lot of things feel very familiar and really also quite touching. So it's nice.
Good. If someone wants to say whatever, you're very welcome. Annette, you might join too, because you are our fresh ears now, and
Thank you, Serge. And I wanted to say that this work is a mirror of our feelings about your videos. So it inside it very different for each other, and that's so interesting. And we have music full of our reactions, and another thing that I really like the third piece. I mean the rhythmic one, because it has very powerful dramatic effect because it's so nice. It's a mountain, и у нас пум, 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 and it's so nice. And then few seconds of catastrophic moment, and next fish, and I'm really like it because it has its own dramatic effect, and I think that this is a great one. And another pieces like our work, exactly how we worked these 3 sessions. And the third one, rhythmic one, is a final result for me, because it's complete. Yes. So thank you very much, and this is my thoughts about it.
Thank you.
Я бы также хотела поблагодарить Сержа за
Yeah, also
идею и
same.
работу.
I would love to thank Serge for this great job
И хотела бы
and
добавить,
for this
что
collaboration.
такой формат работы дает нам возможность не только почувствовать собственные эмоции, но еще нас как ансамбля, потому что когда видео повторяется несколько раз, мы чувствуем одно и то же состояние, и так или иначе мы его передаем все вместе. Это был удивительный процесс объединения нас всех.
That's great. So that this is a communicative, may I call it communicative aspect. This is very important because it's not only a possibility to share our own emotions, emotional state, but it's also a kind of finding a common state of the group. Because the video, they were looped and they were repeated, and every time you can feel how the others respond, and you could also trace the development of those responses. So this collective mutual understanding, which is important.
Разные этюды нам дали разные возможности, то есть передать и собственные ощущения,
Different studies gave us different possibilities. On the one hand, to you can go. On the one hand, to express our own emotions, but also these combinations of our emotions.
И когда сейчас при проигрывании я почувствовала, что видео должно повторяться именно несколько раз, я поняла, зачем это было нужно, вот количество, потому что когда у нас было много повторов, у нас было единое состояние, и потом был неожиданный контраст, например, тоже вот, как Саша сказала, рыбы, потом когда какая-то катастрофа, и это контраст эмоций тоже был важен.
When we played now, I noticed that I realized how important was it that the video would be repeated this concrete, let's say 4 times or 8 times. Because before, when we used to practice and it was repeated continuously, we were in I was in a one kind of state. Когда видео повторялось все время, ты была в одном состоянии.
Да. И потом было переключение.
And then you switch to the other state of emotion. А сейчас? Что было другого, что видео именно конкретное количество?
Я поняла, зачем это было нужно.
Yeah, so that's why Anna says, now I understand why it functions exactly the same, exactly this way and not another way. So these repetitions, the importance of repetitions that were the discovery of today.
Я также хочу сказать спасибо, Серж, за
Same, I want to thank you, Serge.
Да, за предоставленную возможность, потому что мы играли, лично у меня было ощущение, что мы та самая вода из первого отрывка, потому что мы функционировали очень связанно.
Yeah, because Masha says that she would play as if she would be the water from the first video, because the way we functioned, it was really so tight together.
Эта работа нам позволила совместно с вами не только развиться нам как музыкантам в плане чувствовать друг друга, но и в том числе помогла раскрыть композиторские и импровизационные способности.
So that was interesting to see how this work helped us to develop not only the skills of performing musicians, but also this balancing on the edge between composing and improvising too.
Это очень редкая возможность
This is a rare possibility
создавать музыку,
to create
тем более
music,
совместно с композитором, потому что
especially together with a composer.
в 99 случаях нам приносят готовое, или
Because
редко
99%
нас
we
спрашивают,
deal with a ready-made
можно ли
compositions.
сыграть этот прием так-то, или здесь и здесь.
And sometimes the composer just ask us if it's possible to play this effect in one way or another.
Исполнитель часто воспринимается как средство, а не
So that the performer is often considered as a tool, as an
как
instrument.
личность.
As an instrument and not as a personality, not as
здесь у нас
identity.
была возможность
And here
самовысказаться,
we could express ourselves,
и мы были в таком диалоге,
and there
совместной
was
работе.
always a dialogue.
Особенно спасибо за соло-часть.
And special thanks to you for the solo part.
Потому что это было очень здорово.
Yeah, because that was great. I share. Никита, ладно, вы ничего не хотите? Нет, пожалуйста. Okay, they agree.
Thank you, everybody, and musicians, and everybody, all team, for this project. It was very unusual experiment, but of course, I looked many different things in theater and in music in general, but this experience was really unusual. And also I agree with musicians that it's open us as improvising and as composer. So I think it can work and with world system, world and music, and as a video. Maybe, by the way, it can be together because now we play with music and video, and another system was with world and music.
You mean that it's also
yes, I can,
to combine
and
the words
it
and
can
video and
it
music.
can be in collaboration, and I see that it can follow and to have continue. So it was a very exciting experiment.
Oh, that's
Thank you very much, our composers. Thank you, Serge, and thank you, Annette. Thank you.
good.
Could I say something?
Yes, sure. I just wanted to ask you.
Or you, Valentin? I don't know. I wanted to say it would be interesting. Two things to your project with video. One thing, it would be very interesting to hear the music without video. So this, who said, maybe Anna, I don't know, that is so dramatic in these loops, and then it is cutting, and then it's another feeling that comes up. And so I would like, I want to do this after to just hear it. And what is the difference between seeing this video and all these accidents and this beton and all that and the nature, and then just the sound. So that would be very interesting for me. And the other thing is, I want to ask you, the ensemble, I want to ask you, how did you, how did you transfer these images into sounds? Was it feelings? Was it the emotion? Was it the structure of the picture? Was it the flow of the river? I don't know. Maybe you can answer me.
What can I say about? Включила или выключила? Включила. So what can I say about myself? That I used structure of movement on these videos. I mean, then when it goes from up to down, or when it flows, or driving. And that was inspired for me. And I used my first associations.
So it was the movement for you?
Yes. It was
different types of movement, yeah?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Кроме ассоциаций по движению и скорости, для меня были важны цветовые ассоциации.
For Anna, besides movement and speed, also velocity association, the association with colors were important.
Да, например, когда нам показывают реку, которая бирюзового, ну, синего, зеленого цвета, для меня это ассоциируется с определенными нотами. А вот скорость и насколько там быстрое движение, это уже зависит, да, от ассоциаций, и тогда строилось мое исполнение на этих параметрах.
And so, and the velocity and movement, they come kind of afterwards. So the first impulse was the color of the image.
Для меня важно было эмоции, которые я испытывала от увиденного события, и, наверное, собственные впечатления. И каким-то образом просто во мне зарождался музыкальный ответ.
Masha says that that was a kind of musical response to the events that I saw, so the general events, the way I understand them, and to the emotions that she felt at the moment. And then the music comes as a response to those.
Yeah, I think this is very interesting. So to hear how was your reaction and why, and yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's interesting because we just heard three different opinions and they're different, so they all had different sources of inspiration. Yeah. Good. So if someone wants to say something else about these studies, or we can also come back to it later, because if not, I would suggest that we continue actually to discuss things. There's not such a thing like, okay, now we have a discussion. No, fortunately, this is not going to happen. But still, there are a few questions, or it's not necessary that I will put all of them. There are some specific questions to you guys, and there will be questions that I would like to hear the opinion of every of you. Don't worry, they are quite simple questions. And also there are kind of general questions about the whole project, and that's I would love to put to both Annette and Serge. And if you don't mind, so we can start with the dates. Yeah. So then, okay. The project clearly falls under what you would call now creative collaboration practice. You know that this is now quite common. It's common also to the universities of music. I think also in Switzerland there are a few high schools of music where you can study this creative practice. There is normally not collaborative, but just creative practice, or whatever you would call this. So the idea is to put a performer and composer as close as possible. Yeah, but it's not coming from Switzerland, of course. I think it's coming from I don't know, the earliest one was probably in the States, but I might be mistaken anyway. So, but I would call this creative collaboration practice. And we heard already some ideas, some thoughts from musicians. Why was it that important, and why would it fall onto this category? But I would like to ask both Serge and Annette your personal experience. So how did this experience of this project affect your own approach to collaboration? So was there something new for you in terms of collaboration? So specifically just focusing on collaboration, was there something new that you could use also later on?
Serge?
Annette?
Okay. I'm very familiar with collaborating. I work in several groups that we want to leave the state of composer and performer and all these this little cabins, I don't know. So it was really great to recognize that you are very open and you are in the same state as me. So the problem for me is a bit the language. So I'm not a good English speaker, and also the distance that I can't say, oh, let me see on the cello, we can make this, or we can work on the sound, on the instrumental sound also, or on how to pronounce. It was a bit a distance. So what I take with me is what can be the tools to work in this distance. So I think everything is a bit delayed. I couldn't listen really to the things you played, so I had to listen afterwards, and then I had to tell you, okay, I think we could make it so and so. I think we have to play with this delay and with this ping pong effect a bit more than when we are all together in a room.
Okay, thank you. That's clear. I agree.
No, but we can take it as a tool. We can take it as a play.
Yeah, exactly, and that was actually one of my next questions. But it's good that you mentioned this. Yeah. Can you hear this? Huh?
Yes.
Well, that's beautiful. You know, for the final presentation, we asked them to play something cheerful. So. Good. Serge, do you want to add something or to say something?
I mean, for me, it's also a very special occasion. It's I don't have very often the occasion to work with a group of instrumentalists like this. Mostly when I compose or I make projects, I'm inside them and also performing and stuff like that. So this I don't really have much experience with this divide anyway. Maybe once or twice I wrote pieces for someone else, really that I was not involved with. So, but what I really liked in this process, because I previously did work also on some loops with the groups that I was part of, and we worked on and we reflected on, yes, this is nice, this is not so nice, or whatever. What I really liked here is that, okay, I chose some input, we agreed on some input, and then also because of the technological limitation, there was no discussion about what it came to. I asked you, okay, are you happy with it? I was not in a position to give any comment. And so if you were happy, then that was it. And then when I did 2 days or 3 days later, when I got the recording, I could listen back to the real sound of it. And in a way, it was already fixed. So I think that was a very interesting thing about this process. And also for me, this also, there's this protocol that appeared, which is that I send you some videos, video material or input, say, you sent back, or the recording was sent back of what it sounds like to you, that you merge towards the sound of these, a sound response or music response to this input. And then I put them, I tried to put them into a shape, looping them and stuff like that. And then I sent that back. And that as a tool or as a protocol, I think I would like to use it again. So that's nice. And also to say that in a way, these pieces, they can only exist for exactly these people. I don't think, and if I think this piece, whatever was done with another group, perhaps the input would be the same. But then the structure, already the first step would be different, and then the second step would also be different. So this is really, this is a piece that can only exist with us here, and perhaps the same images could be used to do another piece with other players, could have some similar qualities or maybe none, but it's really a work that only exists as such with all the people who were there to make it. Nobody could write, as you said, Sergej, the parts that you wrote to remind yourselves what you played, nobody else can read them. They're written in a way that each player can understand, to remember, as a reminder, but they're not transmissible in that sense. And I think that's also nice, a nice quality.
That's interesting because I also wanted to ask both of you about the distance and time, about this limitation. So what was different about online sessions comparing to a similar experience in real life? And Annette has just partly answered the question, and Serge also, you commented on this. And what I would say, I mean, I'm obviously not a composer at all. I have improvised a lot, and I've been working also with a different group, but mostly I represent the performers party. So what was interesting, what I found, I thought that it might be possible when we were thinking about the project, but what I found during the sessions, and especially today, is that surprisingly, those limitations and the distance between us and those delayed feedback, so to say, somehow contributed to individuality. So, and you notice that all the musicians, when they were talking about the works that had been done with Serge and with Annette, they were always talking from very personal perspective. They were always expressing their own personal, not ideas, but really some kind of self. And it's really extremely interesting because I ask myself, would it be the same in terms of finding one's identities if it would be the process that we could do right here in the room and that we did a lot of times before, but it was kind of different. So I'm not sure how actually to formulate this correctly, but this is just a kind of midterm research finding report for me now. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a difference, because if I were there in Moscow, in this room, then it would be more strength in, okay, now the composer comes in, and then everybody has his or her sheet, and so on. And also for me, it was a special situation, and it was, from the beginning on, it was very personal. I don't know, but maybe I'm here in my atelier, in my studio, where I'm at home, and you maybe too. And so it's another feeling. So I drink my tea, and at the same time I listen to you, but maybe it's not so bad. On the other hand, the real contact with instrument playing, with the details, that was difficult. But like you, as you say, Sergej, this self, everybody was very her or himself, and this was very special for me. I didn't. I work a lot with ensembles, but this was the first time it was from the beginning on very close in this distance. Maybe, I don't know. Yes.
That's perfect. Thank you. So that's a very clear idea. Yeah. Okay. So there will also be a few questions to you both, if you don't mind. But now there is something I wanted to ask musicians. They partly answered the question, but so you are all classically trained musician. Да, вы все с классическим образованием. With some experience, well, it depends, of course. Someone has more, someone less. With experience in contemporary music. So how do you feel about being asked to create in real time? This is one question, да? То есть как вы чувствуете, когда вот вам предложили все делать в реальном времени, как бы творить? And the similar question, how do you feel about being asked to make those selections at home? So, и что вы чувствовали наоборот, когда вот вам домашнее задание задавали, где вы как композитор должна были, да, убирать лишнее? So how do you balance between those things, taking into account that you're all classically trained musician with basically classical or contemporary, but it's part of all this classical, background, especially here. So, and if possible, I would love to hear maybe just a few words. I would love to hear the opinions of everyone, if possible. I cannot insist, of course, but.
Я чувствовала определенную свободу в самовыражении, потому что
So I felt a kind of a certain freedom of expression.
Что после игры по определенным правилам, когда есть дирижер и
Because
ноты,
when you play with conductor and part and score, and you follow the rules, that's one thing. But now that was another important aspect of self-expression.
Но мне очень было интересно работать с идеями, которые предложили Аннет и Серж, потому что это давало нам определенные направления и задачи, которые мы должны выполнить. То есть у нас были рамки, в рамках
But here the
которых мы
rules and the
работали.
framework was given to us by Serge and Annette, and that was important for me. And it was extremely interesting because this is kind of freedom of expression, but this is freedom of expression which is directed at something, so which is organized.
От меня это требовало еще, может быть, еще раз просмотра того, что мы делали на
of course it
встрече.
required from me to have a look again at home. I had a look again at the streaming, and then there was a kind of selection work in my brain. So of course I selected something and I left some things out. Yeah.
Да, и думала, как бы это лучше звучало.
Okay, thank you.
So for me, from this beginning of this project, was a question about collective composing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it real? Is it possible
Okay.
to create something really together? And for me, it was a very difficult thing, because my first thought about composing, it's something personal, something tyrannic, and something what you do, what you want to say, personal,
Okay.
that I want to say.
Okay.
This, and this.
Okay, that's Sasha. Sasha, I think that's fantastic that you studied cello and not composition.
Yes, I thought about it, and I tried before to compose something, and I have some little pieces in my table.
Okay.
I think for now, that I recognize and understand how it possible to create something together, because even when I when I composed this piece based on text, I used only that things that we worked together. I mean,
you used the same methods that we worked.
Да, я использовала только то, вот как мы импровизировали на первой сессии.
Yeah, that's it. Sasha used exactly the same methods that we worked out during the sessions.
And also, this is это также относится и к работе с Сержем.
And this refers both to working with Annette and with Serge.
Потому что, несмотря на то, что нам была предложена строгая структура от Сержа, то есть сочиненное
произведение,
оно было именно основано на нашей совместной работе.
But still it was, of course, it was based on our collaborative work here.
То есть для меня вот как бы работа композитора делится на две части.
Because for me, the work, the agency of composers can be divided into two parts.
Работа над материалом, то есть языком, над чем мы будем говорить.
You can be working with material, or in other words, with the language on which we want to express ourselves.
И, собственно, форма и структура произведения.
Structure.
И, в общем, часть работы композитора, даже тиранического композитора, может быть отдана вот таким образом.
Part of composer's agency, even of the most tyrannic composer, can be shared with someone else. So that's it. Thank you.
So good.
Thank you. Может быть, Валя. Просто можно буквально несколько слов, но вот именно прямо вот как на вопрос, да?
Да, для меня вот было, конечно, это очень необычный опыт. И на первых сессиях даже вот не особо было ясно, что нужно делать. И поэтому для меня было важно чередование наших сессий и домашних заданий. На сессиях, где ты должен давать готовые решения сразу, и домашние задания, где ты можешь обдумать то, что происходило на сессии, и продумать какие-то свои дальнейшие действия.
Sessions, and that we also had this we had sessions and then we had homework, because it was different kinds of working, and the more we moved, the more the borders between sessions and homework were erased, and then it became a kind of something united. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Nikita. Нет, это очень конкретный вопрос, да, то есть вот именно что, смотри, я повторяю. So I just repeat for the clarinetists. Sorry. I mean, I'm accordionist, so I can make jokes about musicians. Да, я повторяю, I repeat just in Russian. Вы все музыканты с классическим бэкграундом, да, ну, я сказал, с опытом современной музыки, у кого-то в большей степени, у тебя, естественно, в огромной степени. I just said that Nikita has probably the most experience with contemporary music out of the group, because he plays in studio for new music ensemble since, с какого года? Since 2007, so he plays in the group, and Nikita has really lots of experience. И вот поэтому как бы, да, и вопрос такой, что То есть что ты чувствовал, когда вот тебя попросили, с одной стороны, да, сочинять в реальном времени, но не импровизировать, да, потому что ты импровизировал тоже много и в реальном времени сочинял тут конкретно. И второй вот связанный вопрос, что ты чувствовал, когда тебя просили вот эту вот домашнюю работу, да, то есть дома как бы отбирать, собственно, материал для того, что будет на сессиях. Вот, то есть очень специфический вопрос конкретный.
Ну, я чувствовал, наверное, какое-то единство со всеми музыкантами, да. С одной стороны, ты хочешь сделать то, что ты хочешь, но ты в этот момент находишься под влиянием, и вот тут идет...
Yeah, the special thing was that on the one hand, you could do whatever you wanted to, but on the other hand, you are also influenced by your colleagues, by the fellow musicians.
Да, и также ты обращаешь внимание и, конечно же, слушаешь человека, который руководит процессом композиции, который
of course,
уже
you listen to our guest peers.
Да, заранее предполагает, что из этого получится, но в то же время не знает, а что же получится. И в этом есть интерес.
There is no certain fixed goal.
То есть первые сессии, они были довольно-таки, ну, они все были по 3 часа, и первые сессии были как-то на одном дыхании. Уже на третьей сессии уже чувствовалась какая-то интеллектуальная работа, потому что нужно было что-то исполнить. Да, и на третьей сессии уже нужно было показать то, что мы сделали, то, что мы делали.
That was a bit different.
Да, и нужно было показать какое-то качество. И вот сейчас, когда мы встретились...
It was a bit different because some qualities had to be shown.
Да,
now when we met together.
Как бы мы подводим итоги, и мне кажется, что...
And we are talking about the results.
Здесь, если на первой сессии мы вообще не понимали, что, как, то сейчас уже есть ясность.
I wouldn't understand what, in which direction, how, and why probably.
Мы исполнили эти произведения, даже варианты произведений
we can look back and see the whole way that we did towards this kind of.
Поэтому, несмотря на то, что наша команда довольно-таки молодая, я очень удивлен, что вот такие молодые участники.
Also, I'm extremely. That's a big surprise for me that all these young people around. And Nikita says, no, I'm not old myself, but this is a nice surprise that the young people.
Они очень как бы с сознанием дела и сознанием приемов
awareness, with responsibility and with openness.
Опытным участникам, да. И я очень рад, что есть такой интерес.
And I'm happy that there is the interest towards this form of collaboration, also on behalf of. From part of young musicians.
То есть такое, в основном такое чувство единения, наверное.
So this is a kind of this is the main feeling was a feeling of getting together, of coming together, of being united.
Также благодарность Сергею, тебе, потому что ты очень профессионально вел эти сессии. И всем спасибо.
Good. Okay, someone wants to send Маша, да? Нет, да?
Мне не мешало мое классическое образование.
So my classical background didn't bother me, didn't prevent me from doing this.
Помню, я интересовалась современной музыкой точно со старших классов
Because
музыкальной школы.
If I'm correct, my first interest in contemporary music was manifested when I was still a pupil at the school.
Вот, и, как я помню, все время притаскиваю на занятия либо ручку, или что-то 20 век
And I
дальше.
always took with me to my teacher, to my music teacher, then either early music or something of 20th century.
Вот. Поэтому я не чувствовала никакой сдавленности за количество знаний, которые у меня есть. Ну, в плане классического образования.
So my skills and my knowledge, my classical knowledge, they didn't prevent me from.
Единственная у меня была проблема, мне хотелось спихнуть все и сразу.
Yeah, but I had one problem. I wanted to try everything and at the same time, right here, straight away. So I wanted to explore everything
Да,
straight
когда
away.
очень много идей, приходилось выбраковывать.
When you have too many ideas,
лучшие, которые сочетаются с идеями остальных
And
участников.
of course, then you have to choose carefully, to listen to the others and to choose the ideas that fit together in the most convincing way.
Чтобы это получилась единая композиция.
That it would be a kind of one united single composition.
А также это была отличная
So that
возможность,
was a great possibility.
наверное, воспользоваться всем предыдущим наигранным,
And
прочитанным,
also,
изученным,
and also to
прослушанным
use all this experience that I had before, and what I played, or what I listened to, what I read,
и попытаться выразить все своим каким-то собственным музыкальным
and to try to express in a way all this from my own point of view, from my own musical, taking into consideration my own musical background.
Вот. И для нас это что-то очень новое.
So this is
Yes.
something totally new for
исполнителям.
us, for performers.
Отдельное спасибо композиторам,
And special
всем
thanks
участникам,
to the composer and
особенно
all the participants.
Сергею за
And especially to Sergej.
постоянно поддержку.
Good. Someone else wants to say whatever? Валя, извини, пожалуйста.
Да, я еще единственное не благодарила композиторов и всех участников.
Валя says she's so far the only one who didn't say thank you to the composers. Yes, you can do this.
Вот мысли, которые у меня появились в процессе, я тоже по-русски буду, потому что сложно. Здесь все говорят коллективная композиция, мы все вместе это сделали, но по сути, как мне кажется, на самом деле ведь у нас была такая партитура от Сержа, партитура от Аннет.
This is that's we were talking about collective composition, but as a matter of fact, we had scores. We had a score from Serge, we had a score from Annette, even if not notated score.
И отвечая на первый вопрос, когда мы были на сессиях, мы руководствовались как бы накопленным опытом, в том числе классическим.
And during the session, we were driven by our experience, including the classical experience, when we reacted to the text and to the videos.
И в домашней работе мы переводили также какие-то свои, также опыт, просто у нас было больше времени, и мы были наедине с собой.
Also, during at home, we did our homework, and we had more time, and we could concentrate on ourselves.
Но на самом деле, если подумать, когда мы берем партитуры Баха или кого-то еще, мы делаем то же самое, ведь мы все равно выражаем себя, свои какие-то
Yeah, but if you
эмоции,
take, let's say,
мысли.
a score of Bach, then we do approximately the same thing, that we express ourselves in a way.
И это навело меня на мысль, что на самом деле нет такой большой разницы между композитором и исполнителем.
Fantastic. I'm happy that you said this. And this made me think that in fact the difference between composer and performer doesn't really exist. So it's not that there is no huge gap. That's fantastic that you say this. I'm so happy. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. I know that everyone is tired. Maybe I would just put yet another question to Serge and Annette, if you don't mind. Is it okay with you? Or, by the way, if you want to ask me or someone else about the project, so you're also welcome to do so. I'm not pretending to be, a great moderator. So I have also one kind of specific question, a question and a sub-question, let's say. So could you formulate, could you describe the tools, concrete tools that were used or that have been worked out during the project, or that were worked out before and that you used to work with us, and a sub-question, that how could those tools be used in your future work? And your future work, I mean, again, I'm thinking big, so I refer to your multiple activities, either as performers, composers, artistic directors, curators, so it depends, of course. So you see what I mean? Okay, that would be fantastic if you could share.
Okay, I will go first this time. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, for me, really the main tool that was worked out and I think could be refined is it's really this idea that we could split the process into different steps. And in this case, it was input, then sound material for each section, and then some structure, then rehearsal. It could be sliced in different ways, and that there was kind of we kind of advanced one step at a time, with the responsibility kind of passing from you to me and from me to you. And so I think this was really a nice way of working, which really allowed for collective work, for also individual responsibility, and really for work. I think that was really one nice thing. Sometimes I find it, if there's collective work without a structure, it's hard to know where I want to work on it. How can I work on it? And in this, I think we found a nice way that everybody could really work on it. You had the possibility to do it by yourself or as a group. We did it together. I did it by myself, and there was really a possibility to get involved with it, both individually and collectively. So this kind of, yeah, slicing of the process step by step, I think is something that I will simply keep as a tool in the toolbox.
Thank you, Serge. Annette?
Yes, it's the same for me, and I want to answer to Varya. And you said, well, there was a score from us, but it was just, we had 3 lessons, and so we had just to put something in. Okay, I asked you to send me some text, and so I sorted this text out, but it was just material, because like Serge said, when you begin from nothing, it takes a lot of time to create a material, you know. So we jumped over the first step to create the material, and I think when I have such limited time, I think it's a good idea to suggest something, and then, as Serge said, this splitting of process, when you are not 3 weeks together, then you have to split, and you have to go back to do some homework, some work for your own, and then you come together to the group. I think it's a good, for me it was a good process. But what I would do more deeply in the next time is to be really a collective. What does this mean? So it was just quite we tapped the border of the collective, but it was we could do it more deeply. We could do it more together. Okay, the next time I promise we could do it.
Thank you. Oh, that's beautiful. That's nice.
Yeah, and interesting.
And interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any other remarks, comments, whatever else?
What I would also do the next time is to focus more these 2 languages. I thought this would be really super interesting for me, and maybe for you, to work with foreign language and with mother tongue, and to really research what is the difference, what is close, what is apart. So this is something I take with me for my next collaborations, also with other people, to work on this. You have 2 different languages, one very close, one very apart. So thank you
Okay.
for this.
Thank you. So then, let me, just a moment. Let me begin now. No, I just want to sum up. And I wanted to say, I agree with most of what been said here. And yeah, that's actually, I said that I'm happy that Vara mentioned that there is finally no distance between composer and performer. And I just want to say two things. One is that, you know, the separation, the division of labor between performer and composer started not that long ago. So it started around 19th century, a little bit earlier. But before, we just had a musicus, and that was okay. Everyone was happy with this. So there was no clear division between, you know, composer and performer. So it's in historical terms, it's nothing. It's just 200 years. And then by the end of 20th century, again, it's coming more and more together, because there have been a lot of attempts, a lot of experiences how to create together, and a lot of discussions, a lot of research, including artistic research projects that dedicated to this, to overcome the gap or the distance between composer and performer. So this is the first thing. And the second, what was so special for me, apart from what you said already, I don't want to repeat, but what's so special, that from the beginning, of course, I was tuned. I didn't want to consider this project as a kind of substitute to a real face-to-face collaboration. So from the beginning, I wanted it to be in a way inspired by those technical and pandemic limitations. And that was interesting, that somehow it worked. And I agree with Annette, with what you said, because of course that's natural for us. We are all human beings, fortunately. We are not yet completely used to these new rules that we are all introduced to, I mean, caused by pandemic. But we are all human beings, and it's so natural for us that, okay, yeah, let me see what you have here. Let me see how does it work on your violin. Yeah, that's the normal reaction. I mean, of course, you can do this in a more discreetful and respectful manner, not like I just did. But this is the principle. And on the one hand, of course, it's difficult. Also for me, it was difficult because sometimes I was translating, sometimes I was interpreting things. Sometimes I was just reflecting because, of course, I myself being a musician, this is a kind of also research project for me. I mean, it's not really research, but there is a lot of things to reflect on. And also self-reflection in a way, because on the one hand, I was listening to it. On the other hand, I was trying to support all points of view. But on the other hand, of course, I had my own position. And that was interesting that finally I thought that, yeah, it works like that. So it's not, let's just not think about the whole things like substitute to real collaboration. This is something completely different because, and I know that we acknowledge this, and you both, Serge and Annette, you just said that, yes, there's delays, there's technical things, that they somehow also work as a tool, as an actually powerful tool for this kind of telematic music, telematic composition. And they can be incorporated into a composition. I mean, if some of you or whatever, whoever composes a work, he can intentionally install those limitations into a composition. That would also be a material. But it's probably about something else. But what was important for me now here, that this actually, that's surprisingly enough, paradoxically, the distance and language barrier also opened a way to find one's individuality. This is fantastic. I've been talking about it already, but this is really fascinating because also I discovered a lot. I opened a new perspective in those wonderful people who are now with me here in the room. And not to mention yourself, because I have to confess I never collaborated neither with Annette nor with Serge. The Studio for New Music played a few pieces by Annette, well, 2 pieces by Annette we played. And Serge, of course, I know who Serge is and I know about his work, but we never worked together. And that's it. So, and also I think there's something about this personality. Is it something typical for our post-digital society, post-digital culture? Because sometimes when we write blogs or when we post on Facebook, sometimes we are kind of more personal than we could be in real life. This is not a new question, but still it's interesting. And it's interesting also to observe how would you, all of you, individually and not intentionally probably, respond to these questions? Because with your artistic aspirations, with your artistic positions, you are probably the most sincere, as in many others, your activities. Да, мы более искренне в ваших художественных проявлениях, артистических, чем во многих других деятельностях. So, and this was special for me. From the one hand, to be here with a musician, from the other hand, to be there with you, and in reality, to be somewhere in between in this digital net. So, if you see what I mean, yeah? Yeah.
I think also the language is something when I speak German, I can always hide behind the words and behind the phrases and behind the structure of language. And now I have just a few words to express, and this was nice. No,
it was very interesting.
Yes.
Good. Then I would say thank you very much for this experience, for this journey together, for the homework that the musician had, for the session that we all had. And it's really inspiring. It was inspiring. I think everyone is agreed it's inspiring. And it was fun.
Yeah.
And this is one of the most important results that you can get out of music. It's just fun. Sometimes we forget about this and we discuss a lot of important things, an important topic, but sometimes we forget it. It's just, okay, let's have some fun. And I think we had some fun.
Okay.
So I thank everyone again who was involved into it. Pardon, Annette, did you want to say something?
I thank you. I would just say thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think we can. I thank everyone for the attention. I thank everyone who follows us or who would follow us in the future on YouTube. And there's just one thing I want to tell you, Serge and Annette, before we say real goodbye. There's one thing I will ask to stop the streaming now, but I would ask you both to stay with us for a moment on Zoom. Is it okay for you?
Okay. Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.